All right, hello all. See some faces. We'll give it just a couple minutes in case we have some people still logging in, and then we will get started.
Hey, Daniel,
Yes.
do you know why the lifeguard didn't save the hippie from drowning?
I'm not sure. Is it appropriate?
Yes. Yes.
For such a large crowd?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. No, I don't.
Because he was too far out, man.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a rich one, man. Like a Rich Williams joke, man.
Definitely, definitely.
All right. So yeah, we could probably just get started. I know it's recording now. Amy, are you sharing your screen as far as the presentation, or who is? Okay, great.
I am, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, welcome all. My name is Daniel Gutierrez. I'm the MainStreet director. For those of you who have not met me, I know we have some new faces. We have a number of new executive directors and board members, I think, that are probably joining us, and they'll probably be going through the MainStreet accreditation process for the first time. So I do want to thank you all for attending. I do want to introduce a couple of folks that are on our team, because you're probably going to see them as we're in the field. The first would be Amy Barnhart. She's our historic preservation and resource. I don't know, what's your title, Amy?
You were so close.
I
Preservation and Nonprofit Resource Development.
Yes, and so Amy is going to be the primary one helping myself and Lucas Pedraza, who's our project coordinator, MainStreet project coordinator on the assessments. Many of you know Eduardo Martinez. He's kind of stepped aside on the assessment, so it's really going to be me, Amy, and Lucas primarily working with you guys on these. So we are changing up things just slightly. We will go through the new process, because we're actually going to use MainStreet America's. They've been going through the redoing the accreditation process. Many of you know we've been talking about this for years, and they're finally we finally have documents from National. We finally have a process which many of the state coordinators were kind of just tired of talking about it. We just wanted the stuff so we could just implement it already. So this is finally going to go into place. So it shouldn't be a scary process. We're going to walk everybody through this. I know it's being recorded for folks that didn't get a chance to join us today, but I'm going to turn it over to Amy and let her get us started. She's going to walk us through at least the technical aspects of it, and I'll chime in as far as giving some context of why we're doing it this particular way and how it relates to our relationship with the National MainStreet Center or MainStreet America. So Amy, it's all yours.
Thanks, Daniel. And if at any point you want to jump in, Daniel, and I haven't thrown it to you, just go ahead, go for it. Thanks. And of course, I just realized I didn't actually do a agenda page for the webinar. But we're really going to walk through all the different aspects of the accreditation process. Some of you have been through the majority of this before, but there are going to be some new elements as well. So if you've read through some of the documents and materials I've already sent out, then you've already kind of gotten a sense of the new things that you're being asked to do or what's different this year. And hopefully this webinar can help answer any remaining questions. I do think that we will have plenty of time for questions at the end. So if you want to save your questions till then, that's great. If you feel like, hey, I have a burning question that needs to be answered right now, that wasn't clear, feel free to put it in the chat or even to unmute and just interrupt me and ask. So just starting things off, what does it mean to be a MainStreet community? At its most basic, you have been designated as a MainStreet program by the state coordinating program, which is us, New Mexico Main Street. You are implementing the MainStreet approach. You're using economic transformation strategies. You're implementing 4-point projects. And then you are meeting or striving to meet the annual accreditation criteria. And that is what we are here to talk about today. So why do we do this process? Why is this important? I would say from our perspective, it creates a way for all of you to share your accomplishments and successes and to demonstrate your performance as well. So we can see, hey, yeah, they're making an impact there in their community. It also helps us understand the progress that you are making on implementing those strategies and achieving your goals, as well as potential opportunities that we can help you out with. So we will frequently say, if we're not in your communities, if we're not in contact with you, we don't necessarily know what help you might need. And we do have resources that we can provide, whether it's funding or technical assistance. And the more we know about what's happening in your community, the more able we are to get those there and help you out. MainStreet America does require this process every year. And then through this process, we will determine if you should be an affiliate program or an accredited program. We also take the information that you provide to us, all the different inputs into the annual accreditation. Those are things that we do report on to the state legislature, as well as to the higher ups in the economic development department, which is where New Mexico Main Street is housed. And then this is from National. These are some of the reasons they say that accreditation is valuable. It recognizes programs that are operating at the highest standards. And the requirements, such as the standards, which we'll be looking at a little bit today, those requirements actually help your program with fundraising, volunteer development, and overall sustainability. And the way they help you is that if you are implementing the things they are asking of you, then typically that means that you are a higher functioning organization, you're a higher functioning nonprofit. And so your sustainability will just be better because you are operating at this higher level. It can also challenge the board to organize and grow. So if you have this list of standards to refer back to, you can see where you're at and what you should be striving to reach. It does demonstrate accountability and credibility to your partners, community, and volunteers. Frequently, local municipal partners like to know that you are being held accountable for the work that you're doing, in particular because they are funding your programs as well. So this creates that extra layer of accountability for each program. And then, of course, if you were interested in this, the MainStreet America offers the Great American Main Street Award every year. That's an application process. And to apply for that, you do need to be an accredited program.
Yeah, Amy, one more thing as far as
sure,
Main Street America, they've been doing more and more as far as fundraising and creating grant opportunities for local Main Street programs and state coordinating programs. And I get approached all the time about them wanting to do a project in New Mexico, and they're always asking, the first thing they ask me, one for recommendations for communities, but the first thing they ask, are they accredited program? Because they're not going to put their resources and additional funding opportunities into the communities that aren't accredited. So that is another thing that is included in that as well.
That's a really great point. Thanks for mentioning that. And as Daniel said, it is Lucas, Daniel, and I that will be conducting your accreditations this year. So as we will discuss as we get further into this, but as you might have seen in my previous communications, we will be doing those meetings virtually. So you should be seeing, hopefully, all three of us in each of those meetings. And then in the future, seeing some combination of the three of us in each of your communities for a site visit as well. And again, just to remind everybody, we are doing this in 30 different communities, 12 of which also have arts and cultural district programs. So we are going to be real busy the next few months. So anything you need from me that is not accreditation related, you might have to wait till December or January before we can actually work on that as far as outside technical assistance beyond this work. So the main elements that make up the accreditation process are the updating of the compliance documents on your digital dashboards, completing the MainStreet America 6 Standards of Performance self-assessment, completing the local program annual performance report, which is something that we at New Mexico Main Street ask for, soliciting partner survey responses, participating in our program review and accreditation meeting, which, as I mentioned, is going to be virtual this year, and then participating in the annual site visit, which will be in person. So I just wanted to kind of share a little timeline with you. So hopefully you saw a few weeks ago, I did send out the meeting schedule that we have set up, the virtual meeting schedule, because we have not scheduled the site visits yet. And as I mentioned in that email, it's a good time to start updating your compliance documents, gives you a little bit more time to do that. We'll dive a little bit deeper into what those compliance documents are. And I have been hearing from some of you who have been requesting moving meetings as well. So if that's something, if you haven't paid attention yet to what date your meeting is, please do that, get it on your calendar and make sure there's no conflicts that you might have. We sent out the self-assessment and performance report, I think at the beginning of last week. So you could go ahead and get started on reviewing those, beginning to complete them. Some of you will have your accreditation meeting in just about, 3 weeks, I think, whereas others of you might not have them until November. So you have a little bit more time to get this done. Now through mid-September, you can expect to receive individual emails from me to each of your programs. I've probably gotten about 2/3 of those out so far. I usually kind of space them out depending on when your meeting is scheduled. If you haven't gotten one yet and you want me to go ahead and send you yours for your community, go ahead and let me know and I'll be happy to do that. Otherwise, if you haven't gotten it yet, you should be receiving it sometime next week. In that email is a Zoom meeting link for that accreditation meeting, as well as a SurveyMonkey link for the annual partner survey, which you will send out to your partners. I do see, Molly, I see your comment about having not received your email yet. I might have it ready to go and just haven't sent it yet, but I will double check that for you. So through mid-September through late November is when we will be conducting all the accreditation meetings. We do ask that you have all the required compliance documents, the self-assessment and the performance report in 1 week prior. That gives Daniel, Lucas, and I the ability to look through them before the meeting. So we are prepared and we kind of get a sense of, you know, what your upcoming priorities might be. We already have some time to think through some of the discussion points that we might have in that meeting. And then you can see here, I've got my 4-leaf clover, which is my little bit of luck that I hopefully am able to get all these reports done in this time frame and hopefully to you by the end of this year. That is the goal. And then you can expect in the first half of 2023 that will be when the physical in-person site visits will happen. And Daniel will talk a little bit about that in a bit. So the first thing and the easiest thing to get done is updating the annual compliance documents. So most of these are things that you should already have. We're not asking you for anything additional other than the accreditation specific reporting. So you should upload your current annual work plan, current operating budget, your current board roster, as well as the conflict of interest disclosures that correspond to the board members that are on that roster. Your most recent IRS Form 990. We also go in and we check to make sure that your Secretary of State and your Attorney General registrations are current. And I believe I've already contacted all of you that we're needing to get those updated. So I think for the most part, we're in pretty good shape there. You should also hope, and hopefully you have been able to get these through your local government, your memorandum of understanding between New Mexico Main Street, your organization, and your local government partner. I know last time I checked your dashboards, they were not all listed there, and I believe Daniel's going to be getting me the most recent list of those he has turned into him. If you have not been able to get that passed through your local government partner so far this year, just send me an email and let me know, and I'll make a note of that in your dashboard. And it's something we can actually talk about during the accreditation meeting, since your government partners will be there as well. Same goes for the local government contract. I think most of you probably have those in place. That's how your government partner is paying you every year, that service contract. I know occasionally for our Albuquerque programs, we run into some issues with getting that, and that's, we understand that, you know, we'll work with you on any of these that are being held up through no fault of your own. Additionally, there is the MainStreet America sub-licensing agreement, and that goes to each of you from a MainStreet America email address. So that needs to be signed and returned, and it's actually a digital signature. So when you sign that, it automatically goes back to New Mexico Main Street and back to National. So
Yes.
again, Daniel, go
I was
ahead.
gonna say, yes, check if you, I know we have a little over half so far, so if you haven't seen it, check it came from Steve Amarin from National. You sign it, so I don't see them until you guys sign them, so you need to check your emails back to, I think, April is when they came out, April or May is when they came out, just to make sure those are completed, because we have to submit these things to National, and that's one of the things that they're going to look at, is whether that you actually have a sub-license agreement signed before they'll give you accreditation. So do make sure you go back and check. And if you haven't, email me and I can connect with Steve to make sure we get the link so that you can sign them. Thanks.
Thanks, Daniel. And what that agreement does is that's what allows you to use the name Main Street and to use their logo as well. So basically they're licensing you to have access to that. And then other elements that go along with compliance are the self-assessment and the report we mentioned earlier that we'll be looking at a little bit deeper in a few slides. And then you also have your other reporting that you are doing every single year. So one being the annual budget salary survey. Eduardo Martinez will be sending that out in November. So you don't have to worry about that right now, but we do expect you to complete it. That is a part of the accreditation process. Additionally, completing your local program reinvestment statistic reports. Those are the quarterly reports that Lucas Pedraza sends emails and email reminders about and asks you to submit. If you are behind on any of those, Lucas will let us know that, and so we will be following up with you to make sure that you are getting that information in. Again, that is information that goes to National. It also goes to the state legislature as well. They set certain numbers that they want us to reach, and they base that off of what we have reported the previous year. So if you're doing a really good job of reporting one year and then you stop reporting the next year, that can really impact our reporting that we have to do to these other entities. And I do just want to mention as well, when you kind of look through the self-assessment tool that we'll be looking at later, MainStreet America provides a description of what they see as being important elements of being a part of your work plan. That it should include your transformation strategies, that it should demonstrate projects that run across 4 points, that you have some measurable outcomes, maybe some major tasks or actions that are needed to complete the projects, that you've identified people who are responsible for implementing them, timelines, and budgets. And you can see an example here. This is a way to capture all that information. Typically, if you've worked with Eduardo or I on developing a work plan, we both will provide you with a document that contains all of these things. So if you are looking for an example of one that you can kind of use to tailor your own work plan off of, please email myself or Eduardo, and we'd be happy to send an example over to you. I did also just want to mention as well, I think most of you are good here. Every now and then, if we have a newer organization or somebody who has reorganized, we're missing some of these compliance documents. We do ask for these to be uploaded to your dashboard as well, but they're typically one-time documents that you upload. Unless you have recently amended your bylaws, then you would be wanting to upload those. But once you have these policies in place, until you decide to update them, they would just be the same every year. You don't have to worry about them. I think there might be a handful of you that did not get your non-discrimination policies developed last year. If that's the case, I would encourage you to try to tackle that as soon as possible, and or we can talk about it during your accreditation meeting as well.
Can I say one
So
thing?
the
Can I
digital
say
dash.
Can I say one thing? If
Go
people
ahead.
need any of those documents like conflict of interest or non-discrimination, we all have copies or things that you don't have to reinvent it. If the people need it, just let us know and we can send them a copy of ours so they can see it. That's it.
Absolutely. And thanks, Michael. Eduardo actually a few years ago put together a packet of model MainStreet policies as well. So yeah, as Michael mentioned, you can reach out to either another MainStreet community or you can reach out to Eduardo or I, and we can send you some of those example policies also. I was going to make a corny joke about the digital dashboard being the place where compliance documents live, work, and play, because we all say that about our MainStreet communities all the time. But yes, this is where they go. So if you have not yet gotten access to the digital dashboard, you know, typically we invite the board president and the executive director. So occasionally there might be another board member who wants access as well. Just please let me know and we can make that happen. So then you have the ability to go in there and see where you're at. So you can see these 4 different sections here on the left-hand side. There will be a red, yellow, or green light next to each one indicating where you're at as far as uploading, updating your documents there. But do know that that light won't change until I go in and check off your document. So you might have gotten all your documents uploaded. It's still going to be red until I go in and do that. So you are welcome to send me an email and let me know so I can get that taken care of. Otherwise, I kind of space out my checks for your dashboard. Usually about 2 weeks out, I'll go in and look at your dashboard again, just see if you've updated anything. And of course, 1 week out, I'll do another check to see, make sure everything is there. If it's not, I'll be sending you guys follow-up emails as well. So you'll click on each of these individual sections and they will open up. So here, if you were to click on the compliance elements, this is what would pop up for you. So it would list all the different documents. Again, I add the comments here in this center section. So you can see down here, it says to be updated for 2022. So you do not have the ability to edit that yourself. That's something that I add in there. So again, if you send me an email, let me know, hey, we've updated them, or you say, we had to request an extension for the 990, we don't have it to upload, then I will update that and say extension requested, and then you can just upload the documentation of the extension, and then we're good until you're able to file it. Cover everything there. So I'm jumping right over, if you notice, number 1 on my list of elements of the accreditation process was the compliance documents. I'm skipping over the performance report and the self-assessment. I'm going to talk about those at the end. I thought I'd get all the easy stuff out of the way first. So number 4 is sending out that partner survey link. As I mentioned, we give you that link in your instructions email. We suggest that you send it to government partners, any partner organizations you work with, district business or property owners, volunteers. The only people we would not want to answer this is your board members, because the board has the ability to provide feedback in the self-assessment, the report, in the meeting itself. So we're creating a lot of different ways to interact with the board already. This is a way to just get some feedback from the stakeholders in the community as far as their perceptions of the work that you're doing. You can see here's an example here of one of the questions that is used in the survey. My pro tip is that as soon as you get this, you email it out, and then that you mark your calendar and plan to send it out 1 to 2 more times. With, I would say, the last time sending it out being about 2 weeks before the meeting is scheduled, because then that way they have a week to respond, and then I can download all the responses that 1 week prior to the meeting. We're looking for 8+ responses. Some years from some communities, we only have 1 response, and it's not that helpful because we're not getting a wider view of like what the perceptions are. And then some communities will get 20-something responses, which is awesome because it does give us a really great perspective on what's happening. But aiming for 8 is great. That's a nice number. It gives us a little bit of an idea of what's happening there. If you're not sure how many responses you might have, which I don't know how you would know. So you can just ask me to go in there and I can check and let you know, like, hey, yeah, you've only had 3 responses, so send out again. I will usually go in there and check myself. Again, like I said, if it's a few weeks out, I will go in and check and see if you have responses. And if you don't, I will usually send you a reminder to do that as well. William, I did see your comment. Are our partners answering these questions for the year 2021? They are answering it for the last 12 months. That is how it's worded in the survey. And that is actually what we are asking of all of you regarding everything you're reporting to us. Because some of you were doing your meetings in September, some of you were having meetings in November. So basically what you're doing is reporting on the previous 12 months. Now, if we came to your community, let's say October of last year, and you're scheduled for November of this year, I don't see any reason why you couldn't extend a little bit further back. You know, you don't have to just say, oh, November 1st to November 1st. You know, if there's a few weeks that we therefore, you know, kind of missed because your meeting is a little bit further back than it was last year, it's okay for you to go ahead and capture anything. So I would just say, look back to when we did your assessment last year, and then, you know, to when we're doing it this year. You are welcome, William. I'm like, where is the information? Here it is. And so the virtual accreditation meeting. So again, we first started doing this in 2020 because of COVID, but we've actually found, you know, it really is kind of nice, especially because we know that the on-site visit can be stressful and it is a lot. It's a lot of organizing and things that we're asking of you. So we kind of like the idea. It's a little bit easier maybe to get our government partners and everybody there if we can just say, hey, let's do this 1 hour online meeting. So again, that meeting link was in the instructions email I emailed to you. Some of you may not have received it yet. As I said, you will receive it this next week. It's a 1 hour meeting. It should be with the board, staff, and any relevant municipal partners. We have some communities where like every single counselor is there. We have other communities where maybe just the counselor or commissioner that represents the district is there. That's okay. Either is good. Some communities, public works director might be there. Others, it might be the Keep That Community Beautiful director. You know, it's really up to you which partners from your municipal government you want to have there. We do request that 80% of the board participate in that meeting. And the focus of the conversation is not to really go back and talk too much about what was done in the past, unless there's things you specifically want to highlight or discuss. What we're really looking to do is focus on the future goals, priorities, and needs of your organization and your municipality, because then that helps us identify how we can help with resources and technical assistance. Christina, I see your question about the Albuquerque Main Streets inviting government partners. And actually, I'm going to have to defer to Daniel on that question. I don't know if you want to answer it now, Daniel, or do it offline, but I had the same question.
Yeah, let's do that one offline because I had a couple of thoughts,
Okay.
and I think we just need to discuss that more, what the best process is for that, because we have multiple in one community.
Okay, so stay tuned, Christina. We will get back to you on that one, but very good question. And then if there's any specific topics or challenges you want us to discuss in that meeting as well, just you can let us know in advance if you want us to kind of be prepared to talk about it, or just bring it up while we're in that meeting. No problem either way. It's a pretty relaxed overall process. And then finally, and again, I'll ask Daniel to speak a little bit more about this. We're going to be doing a separate annual site visit. We have not scheduled those out yet. The idea being that it allows us to come into your community and maybe spend a little bit more time there and not have it built around this very rigid schedule that we have to keep, and be able to experience and see a little bit more of that community and district. Daniel, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. So the way the annual site visit works, and National Main Street Center / Main Street America requires us to do a on-site visit at least once every other year. So as part of the accreditation process, in the past, we've, when there wasn't the COVID restrictions, we were in every community every year. And, we've gone through different iterations where when it was me and Rich, we would split them up. I'd go to some communities, he would go to some communities. With Lucas, we've been kind of doing that. And I always hated not being somewhere because I feel like I learn more from just being there and talking with you guys and seeing the districts than I do from reading the report myself. So I want to be in every community every year. And when I tried that before, man, I was exhausted because I did do that, I think, 2 years, and I was exhausted by the end of October. And we were, just to get it all through, we had to do like 2 to 3 a day. So I really only got 2 hours in each community, and I had to leave. So, the whole idea for me, and Lucas hasn't even been in some communities yet because we've been splitting them up. The idea is, let's just separate the site visit from the accreditation process, because I think we could just spend a whole day there, and granted, we want it to be no stress. We can do our own things, we can meet with different folks, but walk the district, visit some businesses, but just really spending time just to get to know what's going on in a community versus just being really rushed, getting a 45-minute walk through the district and then have to move to the next community. So we'll be setting those up, and I think the whole goal is just to disperse them throughout the year. And I've already been to a few already, just based on needs to go there to address certain issues with the government partners or with the community themselves. So we will be working with you to set them up when it's a good time. So that's kind of the goal, just to make it more easier and separate it from this process, so you guys aren't stressed and trying to get everything done and things arranged at the same time. So we'll be reaching out to you, and I do look forward to them because I actually love being in the communities, and it's one of my favorite things, and I learn more when I'm there because we don't always get to interact with everybody. So that's kind of the process and why we split it up, so we could just get through the accreditation. And I know even the accreditation process seems like a pretty daunting task, but we've been doing them for a long time. It's not changing much. So if you've been through it before, the only difference is going to be the self-reporting form. And we've done this a couple of times in the past. We didn't last year because it wasn't ready, but hopefully it won't be too painful. And then when we do get to be in the community with you guys, that'll be just more fun than attached to anything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And another, what we hope is a benefit is that myself or Eduardo, who are the ones who have in the past written the reports, we're also historically we would also be traveling on the road and driving in between each of these visits, and so we wouldn't even be able to start writing reports until like the next week when we get back into town and already have a million other things coming up. So our hope is that this year, because these are virtual, I will be able to just start churning reports out after each meeting. So that's why I'm like, fingers crossed, we're hoping for the best that we're able to get these out, turn them around quicker than we do sometimes in other years. So now on to the new-ish stuff. So hopefully you were able to attend Eduardo and Daniel's roundtable that they held just a few months ago, in which they just kind of went over what the new standards are. I'm not actually planning to spend any time diving into the standards as far as what that standard consists of. It's very self-explanatory once you read through that document. We're mostly going to be spending our time just kind of walking through that document, as well as the worksheet that you're supposed to be completing with your rating for your community. So as mentioned, this has been an ongoing process. And Main Street America, they wanted to create this new evaluation framework that all coordinating programs and all local programs would be basically evaluated by. So we have the same set of expectations for each community. And they feel like, these do a better job of measuring and recognizing achievement while also identifying opportunities for improvement. So it used to be 10 standards, it's now 6 standards, and they've kind of flushed them out a little bit more. So they're a little bit more in depth underneath each standard. They, at the national level, a lot of the programs are really still kind of rolling this out. We are a little bit further ahead of many of the other states because we actually first introduced you all to these new standards 2 years ago, as Daniel mentioned. So you can see here the timeline that MainStreet America has set. This is from them. Their intention is that by 2024, these standards will be fully integrated and everybody all over the country will be using them to assess themselves. The 2 documents that were sent out to you that relate to this are the community self-assessment tool and then the community self-assessment worksheet. Now you will notice in the tool, the worksheet is actually the last 2 or 3 pages of the tool, but there is also the separate worksheet. So I think they did that so that if you had, say you have 2 documents open on your computer, you're not having to scroll up and down through the assessment tool because you might be reading about standard number 1 and then having to go scrolling all the way to the last page to rate yourself. So you'll see it twice, but you just need to fill out the one that's the separate document. That way you can just kind of click from one over to the other and not be scrolling through 20 different pages every time. So there are some baseline, sorry, I think I'm getting a little bit of feedback. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was muted there. Okay, I think it got taken care of. So one thing that they are doing a little bit different, and if you've already had a chance to look through these documents, you will see that they have some baseline requirements that they are laying out right off the bat. Now, these are things that we have already been asking of you, and many of them are already outlined in your MOU. So I don't see this being a problem for any of our communities. The one thing I think you might just want to think about, and note that I said there may be some opportunities for improvement. So they really specifically say board of directors formed by a representative base of the district stakeholders and community members. And I know sometimes our board might kind of evolve and we might end up in a place where we're like, oh, we don't actually, maybe we're not as representative as we could or should be. So that might just be something that we're working toward in the next year as we're recruiting new board members. Like, let's expand our representation, making sure we're really representing the community and our district stakeholders. Communities over 5,000 must have a full-time director. Communities under 5,000 can have a part-time director. I think we've already got that covered. You should be using a transformation strategy to direct your work. Again, we should be good there. Detailed work plans, as mentioned earlier, a dedicated budget, demonstrated support from the municipality, which can include leadership participation, funding, in-kind donations, and philosophical support. So again, because we do require our municipal partners to enter into a service contract with each MainStreet program, you're covered there. The reinvestment statistics, we talked about this earlier, these are required by National MainStreet. So that's another key part of this baseline requirement. And then being in good standing with MainStreet America, meaning you are a member, which New Mexico MainStreet pays for each of our MainStreet programs. And again, that you're using the MainStreet America logo on your website. And to do that, you have to complete that sub-licensing agreement that we mentioned earlier. So if you haven't completed that sub-licensing agreement, once you do, you will have met that eligibility requirement.
Exactly. And this is why I think, and there's other communities or other state coordinating programs that don't meet the basic requirements. I know it's built into our MOU, which is why I believe every one of you should be an accredited program, because you're already doing it. It's built in, it's already required. So we have other programs that don't require funding from their local government, or they make the community pool or the organization do it themselves, or they don't have those same type of relationships. Very different coordinating programs vary. So a lot of them don't necessarily meet these baseline. We do, and we require it just as a baseline part of the MOU. So you guys are already set up to be accredited programs. And my goal is to have all 30 of our programs accredited, right? And which is, but because I think you guys are doing the work, I believe it's set up that way. You already have all those mechanisms in place. We just have to be able to make the case based on what you give us as far as reporting in the documents. So go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Daniel. So as you go through that self-assessment document, you are going to see, that we have the 6 standards as mentioned. Within each standard is a focus area. Oh, wait, let me do my little arrow. So here's a standard. Within each standard are the focus areas. So you'll see those bolded there. So I think it's typically 3, it might be 4, depending on the standard, but I think it's typically 3 focus areas. And then within each focus area are the individual individual indicators. The indicators are what you will be rating your organization on. So you'll want to read through each of those, and then you'll provide a rating for it in the worksheet. So I wanted to just kind of mention really quick. So you see here, I've got the red circle around the word examples. And the reason we really want to call this out to you is National is providing different examples of what you might be doing to achieve this indicator, but this is not an exhaustive list. So just because you're not doing the 3 things listed here doesn't mean that you might not be achieving this indicator. So we just want to make sure you guys are thinking about that as you're going through this. Don't read it so literally that you rate yourself lower than you should be because you're not seeing your work indicated in these examples that they're providing. And then also note as you're going through the indicators that there are some that say meeting this indicator is a requirement and must be met to achieve accreditation. Again, a 3 or above is what we're looking for here. So you might read through this and be like, oh my gosh, well, I don't think we did not 100% get this, but that's okay. What we're looking for is to meet an indicator like this, the requirement is a 3, a 4, or a 5. And you can see the rating system here. 1 being it's not being addressed, 2 minimal work but needs more effort, and then 3, 4, and 5 from there. So those are really showing like, hey, we are working on this, or man, we're just knocking it out of the park. We're doing a great job with this right now. I do see a comment here about completing the worksheet, but it did not save the numbers. Charmaine, I am surprised by that. Let's talk offline and I'll do a test run because I didn't have any issues with that when I was doing a test run with it. And Christina asked, are we supposed to do this as the executive director, with the board, or both together? And I would encourage you to find a way in which you are all able to do it. We've had some communities where they go through this together in, let's say, like a Zoom meeting where they run through it and they discuss it and decide where they should be rated at. We've had other communities where they've just asked individual board members and the ED to rate it themselves, and then they've come together and they've kind of averaged their scores together from there. I think it's going to be stronger if you're able to get the board involved in completing this self-assessment with you.
It's also more
Daniel,
eye-opening. Yeah, more eye-opening, I think, just for even board members that may not be engaged, or new board members that may not truly understand like the breadth of work that I think MainStreet communities or organizations are expected to do, just based on your work. But, I think one of the best ways is to do it with your board, and then the ED just follows up and adds the justification in the notes and combining that with the report. And I think how Amy talked about these are examples, and I was part of the accreditation process because I do sit on the leadership council for MainStreet America, and we went through every indicator and every focus and every standard like exhaustively, and not just the leadership council, but with Patrice at that time when she was still here, and MainStreet America staff. And I know one of the things that I was super adamant about, because I think there was a lot of different iterations of this, was that we definitively put these are examples of, and we were being really specific in terms of examples of versus things that had to be specifically, you had to meet these things, right? Because I'm more of a person that thinks that we should be doing this in the spirit of, but we're all going to read, we're all going to do our work differently. And I want to make sure you guys are getting credit for the things you guys are doing. So if you don't, like if you grade yourself high on an indicator and it's not one of the examples, just put what it is, how you did meet it in the notes, right? It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be exhaustive, just a sentence saying how you met it, right? The things that you are doing that may not be one of their examples, but it is something that you should be getting credit for.
Yeah, and because Daniel was talking about the notes, I just wanted to click over to this slide to bring that up there. So starting on the left-hand side here, this is the first sheet of that worksheet. And so you are LP, you are the local program. So for those baseline requirements, they're just asking you to say yes or no if you have those things. And then as Daniel was mentioning, once you get to the part of the worksheet where you are actually rating the indicators, we're asking that you put, I was going back and forth between the word justify and the word validate, and I'm trying to use validate, validation, because it sounds a little bit gentler, I think, than justify. But we're looking for you to help us out because we do have to go through this ourselves and then give you what rating we think you deserve. And so if you can just indicate to us in the notes section, if you're giving yourselves a 5 on partnerships and collaboration, if you can just refer us to the project that we will be reading about in your report, like just say partnership building project, then we know we can look for that in your report, and we're going to read all about what you did that allowed you to meet that indicator at such a high level. So if you're rating yourself a 2 or a 1 on something, you don't have to justify it here because we're accepting like that you're kind of feeling like you maybe aren't doing a great job with that. But we'll talk about where you can indicate those areas of weakness in just a few minutes once we get on to the next few slides.
But yeah, we should
Okay.
point out that so the local program is you, the LP is you, CP is coordinating program. So we have to go through and rate you as well. And again, just because we have to justify our rating as well, our justification is going to be on the information you give us in the report, in your progress, or was it called project report, progress report? Performance report. And I know in the past, I mean, I've always, when I'm in a community and I really know what's going on, I'm like, oh, they didn't give themselves enough credit for this or that, right? But I'm still going to consider those things, I think, but you guys have to remember, one, we're not in every community every time, so we have different levels of engagement with communities, and I don't want to cut people short. I give some people credit because I was there and others because I wasn't. So just consider whatever you put in your report, that's how we can make the justification. So the MSA is for MainStreet America, but you guys don't have to worry about that because that's in there. There's a lot of other state coordinating programs that don't have the same resources we have, the same type of team that we have, that we can do the accreditations ourselves. That MSA one is for when we have technical assistance from National MainStreet, where they're coming in and doing the assessment, right? And honestly, I mean, I don't want them over here doing our assessments, because one, they don't know you, they don't understand, they're going to be judged, they would be judging you against other communities and coming in without knowing a single thing, right, about your community. So I want to keep it in-house. I think, that this is our thing, working with you, you're our partners, and I think together we can figure it out. So don't worry about the MSA one, but do make sure, because we have to turn this into national. And I just want to make sure that when I put something that, yes, you're accredited, that I can really make, legitimately make that case, because they're going to see the notes, they're going to see the performance report. So just as much as information as you can give us, it's helpful in just connecting the dots. And I don't want to make it exhaustive. I hate long reports too. And trust me, I got to do reports all the time to justify our funding. I mean, I get done with one and I got to do another one. So I know how it is. So I don't want it to be overwhelming, but I do want you guys to get credit for your work, because I think it's super important, not just to national, but for funding in the future. It's how I get the 10 million this year for capital outlay. It's how you guys, a lot don't know this, but we got our budget, because we haven't really announced it yet, but our budget got up to FY16 levels as far as providing technical assistance. We got about 200,000 extra this year. So, all these reports that you give us, it helps us make the case for why we need to be putting more resources into your community. So trust me, it's beneficial for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And to echo what Daniel said, and I say this for everything, if you're for grant applications, whatever it is, you should always assume that we don't know a single thing about your organization and the work you're doing. Like when you complete a report, it should be like as if you are doing it for somebody who has never read about your organization before. So again, that we have the ability, if like Daniel said, if we are familiar with the organization, we can kind of fill in the gaps based on our own knowledge. But if we don't already have that knowledge, then we don't have the ability to do that. So just keep that in mind. What I was going to say here was that you should be able to enter your ratings. It tallies it up here in the bottom left-hand corner. But now I'm a little bit nervous because Charmaine said that she did it and it didn't save it. So let me do a test run after we get off this webinar, and I will, when we send this recording out to you, I will put a little note in there about what you may or may not need to do to ensure that it saves the scores that you're giving yourself. We've just got about 8 minutes left, so I'm going to try to get through these last few slides as quickly as I can. So as in years past, we're asking you to complete the local program annual performance report. It is almost identical to what it has been in the past, with two exceptions. One, we are now asking you to identify which standard that project supports. It could be one standard, it could be all 6 standards. It really just depends on the project. This example here that I'm providing is just talking about building our relationship with the municipalities. This is my generic example that I sent out to all of you as an example that you might, kind of refer to as you're writing your own reports. And so for this one, I just felt like it just met standard 1. That's what I put there right across the top. I put it in red so we would not miss it. And as we mentioned earlier, this is a way to validate the ratings you're giving yourself on the self-assessment. So if you're giving yourself 4s and 5s across the board, we should be seeing evidence of that in your performance report. We should be able to kind of read through it and say, oh, okay, this is why they gave themselves a 4 or 5 here. This helps us understand that. We also have created a section at the end where you can capture any weaknesses that you want to try working on in the next year. And I'll show you what that looks like in just another slide or so.
Sure. Amy, just to point out as well, like in the indicators, right? Because there's the focuses and then there's the indicators under each standard. You do not have to average a 3 on every indicator or focus. You just need to average a 3 along that
the
standard, right? So if you're low in one area but you're high in another, it'll even out. So just keep that in mind. We're just trying to average a 3 in every standard.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good point. So, within each standard, there could be like 12 8 to 16 different indicators. So as Daniel said, you could be a 2 in one and a 5 in another. That's okay, as long as we're averaging over a 3. And it will, whenever it does average them, it will do it in like decimal points, like 3.4. You know, it'll take that into account. So I just wanted to show you here really quick, you know, I mentioned here that I felt like this project, my marketing and vacant properties, met standards 4, standards 5, and standards 6. And then I just kind of made a point here of showing you, you know, why I felt that way. So standard 4 is strategy-driven programming. And so they want to know that you are basing your projects and activities off of like actual evidence, you know, off of actual research, off of actual information collection. And you can see right here, I started off right in the beginning of the project description that we did a business and property inventory. So we chose to do this project or this activity based on the knowledge we had gained from this inventory that we did. And what we saw was that we had some opportunities to fill some vacancies in the district. So I also felt like this project met standard 5 because it helped us renew interest in the historic buildings that were in the district. Standard 5 is all about preservation-based economic development, preserving buildings, working with property owners on preserving them, you know, doing what we can to kind of hang on to these things and generate economic development from them. So in my mind, hey, I'm getting people into these buildings, so I am meeting the standard. And then standard 6, tracking metrics, impact, and then promoting your results. So I felt like, hey, you know, we use social media to promote all about this project, to report on what the impacts of this project were. And then we also did a good job of actually tracking the metrics. So we had things to report on. So, you know, we had the ability to articulate our impact that we had as a result of this project. So again, just as kind of another example, you know, if you were, like, say you selected the standard that related to, you know, funding development. I can't remember the exact words. I think it's standard 3. But then you didn't actually address within here how this supported that standard. So we just want to make sure that if we're saying like, oh yeah, we did fundraising as related to this and the whole board was involved, well, then that's important to actually capture that in the report, because that helps us understand why you felt like this was helping you achieve that standard. Finally, at the end of the report, we have, just as we have in the past, where you can list any projects that you are going to request New Mexico Main Street assistance with in the next year. Put that there. And then on the bottom here, we've identified a space where, say you go through the self-assessment and you rated yourself a 2 on, like, let's say 8 things. There was 8 different indicators you rated yourself a 2 on. You're probably not going to be able to address every single one of those in the next year. I mean, maybe you can, but you might want to kind of just say, okay, like, here's the 3 I think we can really tackle this year. And some of them we might need New Mexico Main Street help with, some of them we won't. And this is where you could indicate that here. So if there are specific areas you want to work on, you can just kind of let us know, like, hey, here's what we're going to be doing to try to, like, get our performance up. And then there's a space for you to check off a box if you do want our help with whatever it is that you're going to be trying to address in the next year. And finally, we would recommend that you start with your self-assessment and just kind of go through it. And as you look at those different indicators, use some scratch paper and make some notes to yourself about the projects and activities that you guys have been doing that you believe help demonstrate support for each of those standards, focus areas, indicators, or I should just say indicators within each of those areas. Because then that way you can make sure you're capturing all of that in your report. And then you will be able to identify all of that in the notes section, as we had mentioned, as Daniel mentioned earlier. There is that note section in the self-assessment. And basically what we're looking for is to be able to cross-reference across the two. So if in the self-assessment you say, you know, indicator 1 underneath focus area 1 of standard 1 was met by this project, this project, this project, then we can just flip over to your performance report and read about those projects and say, like, yeah, we agree, like, you should have a 5 for that indicator because based on these projects, you absolutely met that indicator. And then the very last thing I want to mention before we take a few questions, and I realize we're pretty much at time, is all this information, you know, we've said it once, we'll say it again, and there is going to be a presentation about this. And I've seen the slides, I know this will be addressed, but use this information that you're collecting. Don't just do this for us and then let it sit there. Use this to develop an annual report. Use it in grant proposals, use it in your newsletter, marketing materials, fundraising materials. You know, you want to celebrate your organization and the work that you're doing. It shouldn't just go into like this dusty document and come to us and then not be shared elsewhere. You know, it's a healthy practice for you to evaluate where you're at and identify areas you need to grow. We should be evaluating ourselves every year, and this provides a tool for you to do that. But then it also provides you with a way to identify areas in which you are excelling, things you should be bragging about on behalf of your organization. So please, please, please remember that these reports have other purposes you can use them as. Also, I do want to mention, we do include this report as an attachment to the report we send back to you. And so if you send us a bad report, that's going to go back to you, your board, your government partners. Everybody's going to see that report. So do what you can to, you know, really sell yourselves well, celebrate what you're doing so that we then are able to share that with others as well. So now, I don't know if Daniel has anything else he wants to add. I don't know why I have quarterly reporting questions next to Lucas's name here. That's
Well,
weird.
if you have any quarterly reporting questions, connect with Lucas. But yeah, but I think, no, I don't think, I think if we could just open it up for some questions. I know we don't have much time. I don't mind hanging out for a little if folks have them. But yeah, I for me, it's just, I can't just say enough about the importance of why, of how you should be doing your reports and why we should be sharing this information, not just with national, but with your local governments, because I think the local governments that I've been, I have the most successful partnerships with are the ones that know what the MainStreet organization is doing. They have good relationships with them. And that's our goal, is to have like a three-tiered partnership. And if we're all not working together and we're all not sharing our stories and we all can't justify the work that we do, then that's when we run into problems. So do take it seriously. And again, my goal is to have everybody accredited because I think you all deserve it, but we still have to justify it. So that's all I have to say.
And I do want to mention, Charmaine just said she saved that worksheet by a different name and it saved all the numbers in there. So when you're completing that worksheet, and this is just a good thing to do anytime you submit something to New Mexico MainStreet, save it as, you know, community assessment worksheet.
Put your name on it, the
grant.
front, your name,
Yeah.
your community name should be in the front of the document, right? It should, because if not,
Yeah.
it gets lost when we save them.
Yeah, like please, it is so helpful to us when you save your community name in any document you give to us. It's super helpful.
Absolutely.
All right.
Questions, anybody? Feel free to unmute if you do.
So will the site visits like be in November, December?
Well, they're going to be dispersed throughout the year.
Oh, good.
Like, yeah. So Michael, like, you know, I was in Las Vegas not too long ago, actually twice this past year already. And, you know, I've met a lot with counselors and the mayor and the city manager. So like those are the cases where I feel like I already have a good sense of what's going on. So yours probably won't be until next year. We're going to start distributing it over. Unless if there's a request to, like, any of you really feel the need for me to come out there during this period, we can certainly arrange that. But we'll probably be following up with you because we've already met the requirements once every 2 years. But again, I really want to do them every year, but we'll probably start just spreading them out once we get past this process, because there's just a lot going on right now.
Right, and Eduardo did a great thing with city council and all that, so we're in good shape.
Great, yeah. All right,
And somebody did ask, you know, again, we will send this out to all of you. I will also attach the slides. So you can go refer back to it. You can look at it again. It'll be uploaded to YouTube, so we'll give you the link to that. You're welcome to share it with the rest of your board or with anybody who wasn't able to be here, or with your government partners if you want to. You know, we'll absolutely make all this information available to you.
all right. Well, we look forward to seeing everyone in Ruidoso pretty soon. It'll be nice to see everybody again. It was nice. We had our new ED training a week and a half ago, and that was exciting just seeing everybody from our team and the new faces. So hopefully we'll have a good time out there and keep the work moving forward and just really get to celebrate ourselves. I think our work with each other in Ruidoso, and it's a nice place to be. So hopefully we'll see most of you out there. Great.
Yeah, can't wait. All right.
My
I
Airbnb.
guess we're good. You guys got
My
this
Airbnb
down.
is Party Central. My Airbnb is Party Central.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Mhm.